T.B.Photo X1.5 to FX, and welcome back to another video. Well, today I'm going to talk a little bit about a little excursion I did during this weekend. Well, me and my dad went to Stockholm. Yeah, as you know, if you're a long-time follower of this channel, I have done some pretty much a lot of concert photography and live music photography, and since the CC pub was basically closed, there is another type deal there now. I think it's a restaurant. Anyway, what has happened is that we found a place in Stockholm, which is not long from Uppsala, where I live now, and he wanted to go, so he picked me up on the way, and we went to Engelen, Angel in English, excuse me. But anyway, that little joint has blues jam sessions every Saturday. And the guy who is the mastermind behind this blues jam is this guy. His name is Kramer. So yeah, link to his Wikipedia page actually in the description below, and so on. But anyway, I thought I would show a little bit of the images, both from as we walked around in the city of Stockholm itself, and also some from the brilliant people who went up and played at this blues jam session. So yeah, here we go. Here is the equipment that I put together for this little trip, minus the 50mm Nikkor pancake lens, the 50mm 1.8 that is currently adorning the Nikon D7200. But everything on the table, and the Panasonic action cam, yeah, we can probably do a little bit like this, so it is a little bit more present. There we go. The Panasonic action cam and these 4 lenses and the flash unit, that's basically what I brought. What should we begin with? We can begin with this flash unit that I've talked about in a previous video. It's the Nikon SB600. Unfortunately, I didn't have any time or opportunity to use this. Basically, it was 2 pieces of gear that didn't get any use during this trip, but I thought they would be a good addition to have just in case. And the SB600 was one of them, because it can be used with the creative lighting system that is present in the D7200. We should probably go from widest to most tele in the focal range here then. Unfortunately, this one didn't get any use. It's the Samyang, excuse me, blanked out there for a moment, sorry. The Samyang 8mm f3.5 UMC fisheye CS2. Yeah, that's a mouthful right there. But it's an 8mm fisheye. I believe I bought this a couple of years ago at Black Friday from Rajala. Link in the description. So this is one of the few lenses that I have actually bought new. That's a little bit of a rarity for me, at least, that I fairly seldomly buy things new. I usually get them used. Next, in order of focal length, the Sigma 10-20, the constant 3.5 DC HSM. This one is actually good when you walk around and want to do those real wide angles and so on. This is actually borderline fisheye. I think actually that Nikon has, or Nikkor I should probably say, has a 10mm DX model fisheye, so I think this goes into the same kind of territory as that lens, presumably, in my opinion, since I haven't used that particular lens myself. But I've talked about this one before. It is a brilliant walking around lens, so being on a crop factor DSLR camera, it is basically a 15 equivalent focal length of 35mm. It's equivalent, what is it now, 15 to 30mm focal length. So yeah, that's a really good lens, in my opinion, for walking about and doing, street photography, if you want to use that terminology. Next one is the Tokina ATX 28-70 constant 2.8. I've talked about this lens before. It yields some really brilliant results. Yeah, I have actually plans on maybe replacing this in the future, but still it is a brilliant lens. It works brilliantly with the Nikon D7200. So let's see here, 70, that's basically like 65. 60 divided by 2 is 30, and 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So 35.5 plus 70, 30, yeah, about 105 millimeter. So it goes from, what is that then, 28 divided by 2 is 14. So 14 plus 28 is 38, 39, 40, 42. So 42 to 105 millimeters equivalent focal length, if my math is correct, and it probably isn't. So that's that one. And finally, the one I actually got the most use of the entire day, actually. And yeah, this is a great lens that I would really recommend to anybody who needs a good value for money telephoto lens, basically. I mean, this one, it's the Nikon ED AFS Nikkor 70 to 300 millimeter f4.5 to 5.6 G lens, and it has this red VR logo here, so that's the particular version that I have. But basically, yeah, I know it's not an internal zoom, it will zoom out, but basically when I went to Flaten, the festival that it's basically a lake in Gävle, or yeah, in the Gävle area that is called Flaten, and they have a home festival there annually, more or less. And this was also back then one of the main lenses that I used during that musical event. So this is a brilliant lens for that type of photography, both indoors and outdoors. So basically, since it's still a little bit of a summer's day here, even though August is over and we're into September, the D7200 is a really good workhorse in even what I would consider high ISO ranges. So when I was inside at Engelen and photographed, I basically used 8000 ISO on the D7200, with also then -2 stops of exposure compensation, and I used this one on 5.6 basically. I've started to think of it like this. When you have lenses with variable apertures, basically put it on the highest of your variable aperture. So in this case it's 5.6. I have 400 millimeter lenses by Tokina that are 5.6 natively, you know, like the fastest aperture on them are 5.6. So basically take this and put it on 5.6 and you basically have the best sharpness, because through testing, and I think it was Tony Northrup I learned this from, that most lenses, regardless of make and model and brand name and so on, they're basically the sharpest at 5.6. That's basically what I've been told, and I intend to agree with that actually. But basically, as we stated, this is then the equivalent of 105 millimeter to, well, 300. So we can basically add 150 millimeters to this one, so it's 450 millimeter equivalent focal length on a full frame. So that's basically the lenses that I brought with me to Stockholm, and I have talked about them in the ascending order of focal lengths, or zoom ranges, I should probably say. And I know that this will be a little bit of a fanboyish episode about the 70-300, and the reason is that, well, though these are two brilliant lenses, and this one, the Samyang 8mm, the bandmass diversity that I have talked about many times before, some of their social media banner pictures has been taken with this lens, so it's basically to get the entire band into the frame on stage and so on. So I probably have that image here somewhere if I can find it. But anyway, that's basically it. And the 10 to 20, brilliant to, you know, get scale, and it has some quirks, it has some chromatic aberration and so on, but that's easily reprimanded in Lightroom 6. Which is the version that I still use. The Tokina 28 to 70. It is I mean, everything I have here is bought on a budget, and I know that they're not the sharpest lenses, they're not the best tools. I mean, high-end professional photographers, they would probably laugh their asses off when they see what I am using, but they yield results for me that I think is good enough. Or at least adequate for what I am doing. And one thing that I'm thinking of venturing into in the future, and I think I'm going to do some videos, is actually flash photography and a little bit of a series on using the creative light system that is in the D7200, and some setups here, tabletop photography basically. So that's a little bit of a hint into the future. But anyway, let's continue on, shall we, with some of the features. And well, when we went into Engelen, my dad wanted to play, so he was queued up to go on to do this blues jam with some other, you know, randomly assembled people, and I was just in the audience, and I started to take snapshots or snapping away at the different performers, and they were some really brilliant performers there. I did do some B-roll with the Panasonic. Don't know about the audio quality, since it is a kind of a shitty microphone and it's not meant to capture great audio. It's not the intent of it. So basically it is what it is. So yeah, probably have some B-roll about it going on somewhere here on the screen or in the end of this video. But basically it was a fun day in Stockholm indeed. So any of you out there in YouTube land watching this that is interested in going to Stockholm, and probably the majority, I should say, of you guys won't, I appreciate that. Go to this place in Gamla Stan, Old Town, Engelen. It's this pub that has live music as a staple of their, you know, services and so on. So really good. Another good one is Pub Anchor, which I have been and photographed at before. So both of them are great venues in Stockholm, but this is the one where you can go up and do blues jam sessions. So that's a little bit about that. Also, on the way home, both on the way there and on the way home, you actually pass when you go from Uppsala to Stockholm. So you're coming from north and going south, and the opposite way on the way back, of course. I had this lens on the camera in the car, and it's motorway the entire way basically between Stockholm and Uppsala. So we were basically doing 110 kilometers an hour, and we passed Arlanda, which is the Swedish International Airport. So the motorway goes directly in the flight path of the airport. So you can actually get some really good scenic views of planes taking off and landing, depending on from which way the wind is blowing. But basically, a little bit of a testament to this lens and how good it actually is. I was traveling in a car on a road that is a little bit bumpy at 110 kilometers an hour, photographing airplanes at almost 300 millimeters of zoom, and I got decent images. That's a bit of a testimony to the vibration reduction in this lens. So if you're planning on getting a lens and vibration reduction is important to you, well, that's a little bit of a pressure test right there for this lens. 110 kilometers an hour, a little bit of a bumpy ride, and taking it at 300 millimeters at airplanes taking off. So that's a little bit of a testament to that lens there. But anyway, I think that that's gonna be all for me for now, and as always, this is Tobias Bergström from T.B.Photo X1.5 to FX, and as always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video, so take care from now on. Bye.
We're going to Kansas City, Kansas City, here I come. We're going to Kansas City, Kansas City, here I come. We got some tricks and there's a women there, and I'm gonna get me one. Well, I might take a plane, I might take a train, or if I had to walk, I'm going just the same. Kansas City, Kansas City, here I come. Got some tricks and there's a women there, and I'm gonna get me one. You know the way. Yeah, Kansas City. Standing at the corner, twisting the one. Yes, I'm standing at the corner, 12th Street away. When Kansas City, baby, and the Buffalo cherry wine. Well, I might take a plane, I might take a train. If I had to walk, I'm going just the same. Kansas City, here I come. They got some pretty suburban women, baby, I'm going. Yeah, they will. One more time. Kansas City, here I come. Kansas City, here I come. They got some pretty suburban women, I'm gonna get me one. Or 5 or 10 minutes. Or 20 minutes, I don't know. Här kommer en kille med sån här gitarr. Jag tänker, vad kan han? Han spelar ju fantastiskt på den där. Det är inte så jävla lätt att spela så på den där, kan jag säga. Det var häftigt.